Hello folks and welcome to Tippcast with myself, Shane Stapleton, joined as ever by Shane Brophy, Head of Sport in the Nina Guardian. Morning Shane, how are you? A little bit of a late start today, that's on me.
Yeah, I didn't mind that, yeah. So sort of a mini hangover this week,
I just see that you've announced it there yourself in the last little while. The Tipperary League fixtures are out for next season. Anything particularly surprising, good, bad, or indifferent?
Not so much, I suppose. I suppose I almost just go through them first here and try to. Where did I have them? Starting off away to Dublin. It's essentially it's the same format as last year, but there's been a shake-up in the groups, which was planned. So starting away to Dublin on Saturday, the 3rd of February, home in Parnell Park, not Crow Park, home to Galway and Thurles the following Sunday. Then there's a 2-week break to a home game against Westmeath in Thurles. Then another 2-week break to play in Limerick on the Saturday night, the 9th of March in Limerick, and then finishing up on Patrick's Day in Belfast against Antrim. So that's a nice one, Patrick's Day in Belfast. So I'm sure that will probably entice a lot of people to be bank holiday weekend. So I initially thought the new format was coming in for next year, where it was going to be 14-team Division 1, two groups of 7, but I don't think that's coming until 2025. So we're back to this format where you have 5 games and the top 2 go to the semi-finals. So you'd have to think, looking at that, it's if Tip beat, you typically fancy to beat Antrim, Westmeath and Dublin, and if they beat one of Galway or Limerick, they'll make a semi-final. So I would have thought get to a semi-final is the minimum Tipperary should be targeting from that league campaign.
Yeah, I mean, I like that it's been mixed up. It's, when it's the same few teams that you're playing the last few years, it gets a little bit tedious.
I think it was this year was the end of this 2-year. They go in 2-year cycles before they jumble them up. So this was the start of next year. I know people will say, why are we going to Dublin and Antrim again while we were there this year? But this is a new cycle, so that's why we have those teams away again this year.
Yeah, and traditionally Tip have had it tough in Parnell Park. I mean, certainly compared with other county grounds, it is tight enough.
Yeah.
And then, playing against Galway, always a good test. Tip wanting a small bit of revenge after last year. Westmeath, you'd be expecting to win that game, albeit there are times when Westmeath put it up to the bigger teams. The more times you can play Limerick, I would say the better. And then a trip up. I mean, look, no harm to play Darren Gleeson in his own backyard up there.
More. If you think 3 away games, there's no harm that they'll be able to get away maybe as a group and bit of bonding and stuff like that. So, you have the Galway and Limerick games stand out, and I believe Limerick are gone on their team holiday at the moment. So, looks like they're getting that out of the way, and there'll be no Christmas hangovers or anything in terms of holidays and just nearly January and stuff. They're fully focused on probably being back training in late November like everyone else and going for that drive for 5. Yeah, which we'll be saying every chance we get next year, just to make sure that any bit of pressure we can put on them, we'll do it.
Yeah. Did you see there? I saw Owen Cormacan, journalist, saying that Cork GA, this was from last night, that they passed an age grade motion that restores minor to under 18, allowing players in their final year of minor to play in adult competitions at Junior A and below, but players in their final year of minor will not be allowed to play in the Premier Senior down to the Premier Junior. And I saw then David Connors of the Tuam Herald, so he's based in Galway, saying, interesting decision. If this was the case in Galway, the likes of Rory Burke of Ormore Marie, Conor Dolphin, Mulla, Ben O'Donovan and Cork, they wouldn't have been able to play senior this year. Instead, they starred. Clarenbridge's Iron Island would be eligible in 2024. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because, I suppose if you go into David Connor's point, you would have had, we wouldn't have seen Darragh McCarthy star as he did for Toomey Vara this year. Like if that was their case, and I'm led to believe he's been called into the Tip senior squad. And
he's not the only.
No, I believe
Paddy McCormack is as well.
Paddy McCormack. Even though you would say on the basis of his club form this year, he didn't light it up, but you're probably looking. Paddy's exactly the type of player Tip need in there to start developing. Like he's a big, strong guy, very skillful hurler. If you can get him in the system, maybe look if he goes in there and makes an immediate impact, fine. But you're looking maybe 2-3 years down the road for him. Like the earlier you get him in, the better. Like so. I would assume that panel will be coming out very soon. But yeah, back to the point on the age grades. Yeah, I know it's been a big issue in Cork, particularly. I actually think it's a fair compromise, because I think a lot of the clubs from senior down to Premier Junior they always have decent numbers, so they probably don't need that. Maybe they'll probably be able to create a good minor league there where those 18-year-olds will get a lot of games, whereas you go from junior down, probably maybe those clubs are tight for numbers and they do need that 17-year-old. And it's all about finding the balance in terms of a fixture structure too, where you don't want too many competitions crossing each other. I know it's Tipperary are making a decision on theirs next Monday night. Now, from a forum that was had a couple of weeks ago, the lean was that Tip will be staying with the uneven age grades, that they feel that what's been there for the last couple of years is bedded in and bedded in nicely. I know there's still an element there. I think one club is putting forward a motion to go back to uneven or to even age grades, but that would mean starting competitive hurling at under 14, because like although this motion says they should start at under 12, but that would mean amending national rule, which says you can't play championships at under 12. So I don't know whether that motion will be ruled out of order. But the vibe I'm getting is that Tip are happy enough with what's there at the moment. I know there's frustration with some clubs of under 21 being played at this time of the year, but where else would you play it? Like, you can't play it July to September, because that's under 19 has the midweek slot there. So unless you go and get rid of 19 and 21 and have one under 20 championship and play it maybe from July through to December, you elongate it or something. I don't know. It's what they're going to do, but it'd be interesting to see how it works in Cork, whether they'll have to mend it in time. I think some of the Ulster counties are going back to minor at 18, but then inter-county minor is staying at 17, and there's no sign of that changing anytime soon. Like, so.
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of factors here. There are young lads who are good enough to be playing senior at 18. Yeah. Like, you look at, I don't know if you ever watch, I see you tweeting there about the high line that Spurs had on Monday, so I know you do watch a bit of soccer, but like, you look at Barcelona at the moment, they have your man, Niall O'Meara, or something like that anyway. Yeah. He's 16 years of age, he's playing there the whole time. They've lads 17 playing regularly. Yeah. And obviously they go through S&C for years and all that crack, and it's maybe less of a physical game, but there are lads who are ready to play senior at that level. So you wonder, is it a great idea to hold them back? You also think if you're changing things around, and like up in Dublin there last week, and I'd be with UCD freshers and coaching lads from mostly across Leinster, they're all playing under 20 or whatever it might be at the moment as well. So I don't know where you'd fit in another competition. And then there's also the whole thing that there's some clubs where if you do have access to a guy in his last year or minor, you have to make sure they don't get flogged then, because they're going from, let's say, under 20 to college to, back to senior and the whole lot. And we'd nearly be thinking most people have folded their tents up for the years. Yeah. Like, these young lads are just playing constantly at the moment.
No. Sure we would have Colin Fogarty and Lorrha, like he's finished with our seniors now, but he still has under 21 and he's still playing midweek. He's midweek matches with Minute as well. So like, they're just because it's this time of the year doesn't mean there isn't, as you say, a number of guys that are still doing an awful lot of hurling. Like, so like it's, and you mentioned the good guy that might be well able to play a senior at 18. That's fine, but you also have to balance it. Maybe the guy that's not ready and has been forced maybe to go in on a team to make up the numbers, and that's not doing him any good either when he's not ready for it. Like, so it's a balance between both.
Yeah, and then back to this at a county level, the likes of Dara McCarthy and Paddy McCormick. If the Kilkenny the Limerick lads, they're in there a couple of years, you see the likes of Adam English, Cathal O'Neill, and they're still under 20, and they've now physically filled out and they're operating at senior level. I'm sure that's in the mind of the Tip management that in 2 years' time, they'd like lads that are currently 18 or so to be physically ready. Now, whether they will or will not is another thing, but at least you're putting them in a situation where they might be. And who knows if they'll be part of the senior setup this time next year, or even in a couple of months' time. See David.
Like, if we were to go like to David, like, that's like that's a lot of fresh faces, and even there's probably some more we haven't mentioned, and look, we know we'll probably talk about it maybe next. Niall O'Meara is retired, and Seamus Callender. Like, there's definitely a sense of new era about what we're probably going to see from Tip next year, and it has the potential to be exciting, but it also has the potential to be a very, very difficult year if things don't go well, and your blood and young lads in up against the likes of Limerick and Galway and guys that are teams that are very, very seasoned. Like, it could be tough.
It could be. David Hogan was saying Jack Leamy, Dara Stakeham, Sean Hayes, Billy Seymour, Eddie Ryan, that apparently they're all called in as far as he's heard. Remains to be seen, I suppose. I mean, there could be this thing of just training panels coming in, trial matches, and it may or may not be. What was that Miller Shields that we had there a couple of years ago? I'm not sure if that's happening, but
no.
Yeah. So you mentioned Niall O'Meara there. We're obviously going to come to what happened with yourselves there, Killerwan over the weekend. Or sorry, not Killerwan, Lorrha. But speaking of Killerwan, can we talk about Niall O'Meara? He has retired from intercounty duty, and like, he was a brilliant servant anytime he was in the Tipperary jersey.
Yeah, no, we Niall will actually be coming on with us next week. He just couldn't fit it in this morning, but it is I suppose not a surprising one. Just going back through his career, and then I was looking. He only made 18 championship appearances in 8 years. Like, you think he was there for 10 years, but effectively, he didn't play in 2022. He took the year out, and then this year he never featured at all because he got an injury earlier in the year. So, like, it wasn't an awful lot of games, but like, any time he played, he made a serious contribution. I suppose I would have likened him a lot to Bonner Maher. He always knew if you got a ball in his area that he'd fight hard for it. Like, he really loved the down and dirty stuff, but like, he was an excellent hurler too. And I suppose the killing thing for him, so I did a piece with him this week for the paper, and like, he outlined that I suppose family reasons he became a dad for the first time about 4 months ago, and that has probably changed his focus a bit, and definitely, and then the injuries, like, it's probably just got the better of him now. Like, every time you felt he was coming right, there was always another injury, whether it was a muscle or a fracture, or I know he had maybe concussion problems this year with Killerwan. So hard to blame him in some respect, but yeah, you sort of feel he did an awful lot of hurling, but we missed out on an awful lot more if he got a clean run at it.
Yeah, and like, look at some of his big performances over the years, and he won Munster titles as well. So 2016 came on as a sub in the All Ireland, but I'd say it was just so like in terms of like the effort you put in, just a great reward to start and score a goal in an All Ireland, because you'll obviously never beat the feeling of playing like that full part from the start, going around doing the parade and all that. So like, he would have had tough times with injuries and all that kind of stuff, and maybe having to wait your time behind some other great players at different stages. But yeah, overall, I'm sure he got more than what he's happy with from his career with Tipperary. So congrats to him overall on a brilliant career.
Yeah, no, we'll have him on next week and have a good chat with him.
Yeah, absolutely. So Lorrha at the weekend there against Corofin of Clare didn't really go your way for a finish, and I suppose there was a little bit of a gap in the scoreline for a finish. How would you sum up the game?
Yeah, it was bitterly disappointing. Look, you have no qualms about the result. Like, the better team won. I thought, 10 points was harsh. They did on a goal at a point in injury time to, suppose, embellish it. I thought if you had the margin about 4 or 5, it probably would have been a more fair reflection. Like, I suppose it was just a disappointing fact that we never got to the pitch of the game of our level of what we did in earlier games. And look at that. It wasn't because we were taking the competition lightly or anything. Like, we trained well over the previous 2 weeks and stuff. But I think, as Ken Hogan said afterwards, you always know in a dressing room, whether lads, there's a sense of tension in the dressing room beforehand, and it wasn't there. Like, it was like lads were relaxed, and in fairness, our dressing room was always relaxed beforehand. It's even when there's a bit of tension, there's always a bit of relaxation too. So, but you sort of really didn't feel the sense of tension too, and it was actually something I was saying to Ken there yesterday, and he agreed with me that we actually might have been better off if we were the away team. Maybe if we'd gone to Clare, you would have been slightly more focused and stuff. Like, you were going into the unknown, where we were playing in Ina, we were playing talking out.
It feel like a challenge match in a way.
Yeah, but no, not that. But we were going into Nina where we know we're familiar. It was sort of like another game, like, whereas maybe if you're doing something different, you might have been slightly more focused. But look, we just didn't perform. A lot of our key guys just didn't get up to the level, and Corofin were worthy winners.
Yeah, and is there anyone that would have overly impressed you? Diarmuid Cahill scored a hat-trick, I believe.
Yeah, 3-2, and like James Organ, former Clare minor, like he didn't. I don't think he even played in the Clare final, whether he was injured or suspended, I'm not sure, but like he was a big good player for them. Like I'm not going to use tiredness as an excuse if we can't. It was like they have an awful lot of guys that are playing dual in football, so like they could say they were tired as well, but definitely they looked like they had the match fitness on as like the residual stuff, and like a dual club who play probably as much football as they do hurling. They're better built for winter play. Like they know how to spread the ball around in the soft conditions. We're like, anybody who knows us, we're not a huge team. We're a very quick team, and in these conditions where the ball starts to slow down a bit, it doesn't help. Like, we got a brilliant goal through Owen McIntyre in the 4th minute. That was us at our best, but after that we struggled to get those type of quick ball moves together. Like guys coming off the shoulder, we struggled to break the tackle. And look, I won't say maybe that the warning signs weren't there. I suppose even in the 2 games against Thurles, I never thought, while we got through them, we weren't flowing as well as we were early in the championship. Maybe there were signs we were starting to flag a bit, and look, there was definitely elements of that at the weekend as well.
Yeah, I saw James Hayden's piece in the Nina Guardian, which of course is available now if people are interested in picking it up. That 7 of the Corofin team were playing a 28 week in a row, which is like, even when you think about that, isn't that mad, the amount that's been asked of dual players? And you know, I see it up here in Dublin as well. I kind of project that the dual lads will be playing, like, for example, Whitehall this year probably played about 40 matches at least, which is not really the right balance. But they'd won one on the board inside 2 minutes. And it was there just that sort of sinking feeling a little bit when you saw the 1-1 going?
A small bit, but like that goal was self-inflicted. Like, it was a goal we conceded. We just did, like, it was in these conditions, we like to be direct, but we also like to use the short ball too. And like, it was just a game where you just don't use the short ball in those conditions. And it was a pass in our own full back line. It was blocked and ended up practically into an empty net. Like, and just I suppose we were chasing the game after that, and 4 points. I think we were 6 down midway through the first half. We got it back to 4, and then we got it back to 1 with about 10 minutes gone in the second half. Had a chance to equalise. It looked like we were getting on top, and then bang, they got a goal to go 4 ahead. And then I suppose a 4-point lead in winter hurling, and bodies are tired. It's hard to chase that down. Like, there's that's hard sledding. And look, I suppose Bonner got sent off with 5 minutes to go, and just disappointing. From a personal point of view, I'd love to have had got a run in Munster. But it's like, I suppose one thing that's been thrown at Tip clubs is that we're struggling in Munster, and I suppose we thought maybe that the Premier Intermediate champions going forward would make things better. And in fairness to Roscrea, they got to the final last year, which like they beat. But on the face of it, at the moment, you'd have to say below a senior grade, you'd have to think Limerick and Clare hurling at intermediate level looks like it's stronger than Tip hurling based on what we've seen in the last few years. And even Waterford to some extent, you would think if you put De La Salle up against Sarsfields last weekend in senior, they probably would have beaten them too. Like, people say the Waterford Championship is not competitive, but Jesus, like, Ballygunner are so far ahead. But you would put all those other Waterford clubs in other championships, and I'd say they'd be very, very strong.
Yeah, I suppose, like, it is disappointing Tipperary club performances in recent times at different grades, but actually, and while we're speaking about Ballygunner, like, it really was some performance. Like, is there any club side outside of, I suppose outside of Ballyhale, who of course are gone, who were playing quite like that? You know, actually, I was thinking about it more since, actually. The teams that have won all the All-Ireland since you go back to Portumna in 2014 are stacked with current inter-county players. Like the Coola team that I was involved with, of course, like half the Dublin team at the time. And
Newtown Shandrum when they came through.
Yeah, even before that, like Portumna weren't stacked with current intercounty players, but they were stacked with players that had, just beforehand been senior intercounty players, or still were, or else they'd won 3 All-Ireland, so they knew what it took to do it. So I mean, that actually said to me that that's going to make it tough for Killadangan, because they have a lot of players who are right up there in terms of like they're of that level, but they're not stacked with current intercounty stars. So that would sort of add to their challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I didn't get to see much of the Ballygunner game, but I was very surprised by the margin of victory. I definitely thought Sarsfield's, like, they would have had a couple of weeks. I know they had their issues at home with the flooding, but it looked like in terms of they got every support possible from neighbouring clubs and Cork County Board to be able to train properly. But like, I just think it's alarming for Cork Club hurling is that they're just not competitive outside of their own county. Like, Middleton was it 2 years ago they were walloped by Kilmallock or was it last year in a maybe 2 years ago in a semi-final, like, so. And just it's but like, just Ballygunner are so strong, and like, I don't see anybody stopping them, to be honest. Like, even the Piershig, I know they have to go to Limerick on Sunday week, but like, there's all the Piershig contingent, I believe, are on their Limerick team holiday at the moment. Will O'Donoghue, Peter, like, they're maybe that little break might do them no harm. They'll be fresh coming back, Mike Casey. But Jesus, it's I do think maybe I think the last chance of somebody stopping Ballygunner from winning the All-Ireland will be in the Piershig on Sunday week.
Yeah, do you know, like, no Cork team has had a home game in the Munster Hurling Club Championship in a decade.
No,
which is insane.
I don't understand that regulation. There was always a thing where if you played a team from one county one year, and if the following year, if the two teams from the same county met again, you played at the different counties. Okay, it might work out that maybe it mightn't be you're a different club every year, but it always balanced itself out, like, in terms of county. And I think they actually should go back to that, because it's it would just make it a lot fairer. You think that, like, Ballygunner last year had a first round game at home to the Tip champions, and this year had a first game. Like, that's a great start. Like, you're starting off in your own town, and you're off. Like, if they had to look, maybe to go to Park Arena, it would be slightly more difficult. I don't think the result would have changed, but I don't know how they work those venue things, but I do think if Tip and Waterford played in a club championship senior game this year in Waterford, that no matter who the representatives are next year, that the game is in Tipperary, like, and it just balances itself out over time, like, so.
Yeah, are you getting any vibe in terms of what's going on with Killadangan and how preparations are going, or is it all quiet?
It's been all quiet. I know they celebrated well for the cup first couple of days, but I know they knuckled down last weekend. It was like, this is a big deal for them. Like, they didn't get the opportunity to go into Munster in 2020 with COVID, and I feel they're not going to let that opportunity pass this time without giving it a right good go in terms of preparation. Like, so, look, there's a lot written and said after the game in terms of Alan Finn's comments. So, look, I suppose they've got to back up the talk now a small bit. And look, it could help them too. Like, and look, it's a 50-50 game as far as I'm concerned, like, with Clonlara. And as you say about intercounty help, like, they have John Conlon, they have King or the Galvins, like, they have probably a bit more intercounty pedigree playing in Semple Stadium, which will probably help them too. Like, so, like, I personally, I think, but I can't call this game. I think this is toss of a kind stuff. The fact that Killadangan are playing in Thurles, I don't think is a massive advantage either. So, huge opportunity for both to get to a Munster final. Like, and look, I'd have no doubt that Killadangan will be going bullheaded for this.
Yeah, and if based on your own experiences there in the last few days, if you were to say one thing to Killadangan in terms of making sure they start fast or whatever it might be, what would you be saying?
It's hard to know. Like, it's like, I don't think we did anything wrong in the build-up, like we trained regularly. Is like that's what one thing it probably didn't help. One of our panelists got married on the Friday, and a lot of the players were there, and maybe I suppose if that was a Friday before a county final, maybe none of the players would have been there, or they would have gone home after. Like maybe a small thing like that, but I do think Semple Stadium certainly plays into their hands, and I know. Look, from our point of view, while the fixture was made for McDonagh Park before we even had won the county championship, our preference would have been to play in Semple Stadium because it suits our style of play, whereas definitely suits Kildangan's style of play, like a big open field, quick track, like so.
And you had no input into that decision of the venue.
No, it was made before we were even consulted, like as far as I'm aware, like so. I was always taught when you had a home venue that you were entitled to nominate where you wanted to play it, and we saw that the fixture was made for Nina before we even won the county final. Like we had enough to focus on without even looking ahead to another game. Like so.
Yeah, because I know when Burris played Ballygunner in the Munster final, there was a lot of talk over. Now, maybe this is the difference between it being a Munster first round, where you know some of the details have to be locked down good and early, versus you know later in the competition when it's still up for debate.
Yeah,
and you know when they were trying to decide the venue, and Ballygunner were trying to make sure it was on a wide open field, and you know we'll play it in either Páirc Uí Chaoimh or Thurles, whereas Lee were like, no, we'll play it in Nina altogether, and they ended up getting that neutral venue of Páirc Uí Rinn, and you know, would Burris Lee?
Well, I think finals are neutral venues anyway, but like this, our game was always a home venue for the Tip champions, so like our ground wouldn't have passed the regulations, and I don't know whether Munster Council assumed we'd be happy with Nina. It's nothing against Nina, but Nina at this time of year is always a soft track, whereas Semple Stadium is always, even in the worst of conditions, it's firmer on top, like, and the ball travels, and we needed the ball to travel a bit quicker. And no, look, it's only a minor thing. Look, we were well beaten and on Sunday, and look, we wish Corofin well on Sunday week against Drummond-Athleta.
Yeah, and so it's two All-Stars that are going to be in that Ballyea team. Sorry, not Ballyea. It's normally Ballyea, that Clonlara team, when Kildangan come up against them. Not too far down the line at this stage. And like, I don't know how much of a chance you'd have got to see them, but you know, some of the teams that are going to be playing this weekend in the Leinster Club Championship, Naveena against Kilcormac. I don't know, do you hear much about Kilcormac? I mean, you're not a million miles away from them there. Raharney, Nafina, Camras against Naas, and Mount Leinster against O'Loughlin Gales. There's a lot of teams in there feel that Leinster is wide open beginning.
Oh, yeah. Like, you have to think now that is a juicy championship now with Ballyhale gone. Like, even Naas would have to think, God, we gave Ballyhale a real good game last year in the semi-final. Like, so, like, I suppose the thing for Naveena is the fact that they've had no hurling since August, like, so, and Kilcormac, what was it, a month ago since they won the Offaly final, so like they'll have a chance to celebrate and go again. And geez, I don't know, I fancy Kilcormac to get through this one. I think they're the dark horse in this, like, you think, and then like O'Loughlin Gales, like the high of Wheaton Ballyhale, and then you know Mount Leinster Rangers are licking their lips for this in Dr. Cullen Park. Like, again, maybe in some ways, if this game was in Nolan Park, it might have served Mount Leinster better, because maybe O'Loughlin's would be okay. I think you're kind of forewarned if you're going to a ground in another county. You're always a bit more okay. You're doing something different. Like, maybe I'd say there's probably a fair chance O'Loughlin and Mount Leinster Rangers have probably played challenge matches a lot down through the years. Like, they're not far away from each other, so maybe that familiarity might count against Mount Leinster Rangers. But it's like you have to think that Leinster Championship it's beautifully set up. Like, there's even the Westmeath champions have always been competitive. Like, there's very, very little in Nafina, and like the sounds like Donald Burke won't be back, but if Nafina got Donald Burke back in the latter stages of Leinster, like, they have got to have a serious chance.
Yeah, you look at when some of the teams played their county final. It was the 20th of August that Naveena won their county championship. So you look at 2.5 months since they last played. Raharney won their county championship a month ago. That was a late goal from Killian Doyle that took it away from Lough Lane Gales. And the distance between O'Loughlin Gales and Mount Leinster is half an hour. So, like, the chances that they've played each other before are very, very high.
You'd wonder were Navan and Ballygunner and Mount Leinster, where they all played challenge matches
Oh.
against each other for the last while, because they were the only teams that could play really. And I don't know whether Trot O'Neill's they were probably played. It was the Kerry final was played in August too, so maybe there probably was a nice little challenge match quartet between all those teams for the last while.
Yeah, and like you do see that, like we would have been part of that before with Coola as well. You'd play a lot of these teams that are going late. Like as far as I know, Kilcormac were battered by Ballygunner not so long ago, and I'd say Ballygunner probably pasted a few of these teams because I don't know, whatever it is, they're just so good. They're able to deal with the fact that the Waterford final is played so early, and then it's like a mini pre-season. They get to play a load of their different players, do a bit of I presume a nice bit of conditioning work, and like it's just a great time for them also to work on tactically what they're going to do. So,
like it's just I know you mentioned a lot. They remind me a lot of Burr. Like they're a dominant club in a small enough. I wouldn't say small enough hurling county, but you know what I mean. Then ideally there would be backbone in a lot of that inter-county team. So, but it doesn't. I suppose apart from
they have about 6 or 7.
They still will, with Patrick Fitzgerald, Desi Hutchinson, Shane McNulty. I know the man.
No, McNulty's still a style.
Oh, sorry. Ian Kenny, sorry. I know Stephen. I know
Kevin Mahoney, Peter Hogan.
Yeah.
You know, Conor Sheehan, Paddy Levy.
But realistically, there are only 2 starters. As you'd say, Fitzgerald and Desi would be the 2 nailed-on starters next year. Levy, Mahoney, Hogan might work their way in, but you can't say for definite they'll be starters. They might well be. Ian Kenny.
Yeah,
as well.
I'd imagine if Ian Kenny was fully fit, he's had a lot of injury problems. I'd say he'd be a starter as well. But look, it's 2 months since at least 2 months since every other Waterford team has gone out, and this is happening year after year within Waterford. So over the last 4 or 5 years, Ballygunner collectively have been probably together for the guts of 8 months, 12 months together. So like it's very hard for the other teams to bridge that gap.
Would it be something that Davy Fitz might consider next year? Is I know I suppose whenever Ballygunner finish or whatever he gets them, that maybe my base I start with as many Ballygunner. No. Do you know what? Maybe start with the 6 and build the team around those 6. Those 6 will know. They'll sort of they'll have an understanding. You know what I mean? Like, and then instead of maybe trying to put players into a system, maybe create the system around them, and then you're maybe getting a bit of an understanding, a greater understanding, like so.
Yeah.
Get maybe Paddy Levy to start, Kevin Mahoney, Peter Hogan, like just I don't know, maybe it's something that he might consider.
Yeah, he might, but then you have to ask, do Ballygunner play a little bit like Limerick? And is that the way that Davy himself likes to play? And considering the way they set up sometimes last year, the idea that they would then go to more of a Limerick setup, I'm not sure, even though like some of his players certainly would be suited towards that. But we'll move on to another provincial campaign, which is starting this weekend. And that involves Clonmel Commercials. They'll be hosting Newcastle West. That's on Sunday at 1:30 p.m. at Semple Stadium. In the other one, Castlehaven, they're home to Cratloe of Clare. But I think after last year, forewarned is forearmed for Clonmel Commercials. They'll know what they're coming up against. Now, last weekend, I think it was 2-5 to 13 points that Newcastle West won their county final. But, they're a serious proposition.
Yeah. I'd say Clonmel were probably actually hoping Newcastle West would win that Limerick final, because I'd say they really want. I wouldn't say revenge. Look, they were deservedly beaten in extra time last week. Like, look, they just weren't good enough on the day. Like, and I think they will fully accept that. Like, there was nothing that you could say maybe they took their eye off the ball after the big win over Nemo, and maybe thought that it was going to happen. Like, I do think. Plus the fact that Newcastle West only won the Limerick final last Sunday, probably had a good Sunday and Monday night. That this is a big opportunity for Clonmel. If they get off to a blister and start, like they could win this game comfortably. I think it's just the way the thing has fallen maybe for Newcastle West. The fact they only got a week's break, which I thought was strange. Like why? Maybe it has something to do with the Limerick. The Limerick team holiday that they had to play the Limerick hurling final first, and so they could tip off. I assume Declan Hannon doesn't play football for a day, or so that's maybe why that the football was on this weekend while the Limerick lads were gone. So look, look, when you think that you win this one, you have a home semi-final against Dingle, very tough. Like, it's for the talent Clonmel they have a great chance of going all the way in Munster. Like, you look at with Nemo gone, like Castlehaven will always be good in Cork, but then by all accounts that Cork final was not easy on the eye. Cratloe, Colin Collins managing will be well organised, good team. So like it's there for anyone, especially for Munster. When you're probably looking at Kilcoo, Kilmacud, and Corofin, maybe All Ireland's semi-finalists. Jesus, wouldn't it be great for Clonmel if they're the fourth team in that? But I know Ulster's still a long way to go, but if you were picking three of the likely semi-finalists, they would be it at the moment.
Yeah, I think Scottstown are actually a real unknown quantity in the sense that they've now got Jack McCarran.
Yeah.
So he transferred last year from Curran. But he has family background involved with Scottstown. So I think they're an unknown quantity. Just for Newcastle West this weekend, how do they ensure that, what's his name? Owen Hurley, I should say, doesn't score another 2-4 and that, the likes of Ian Corbett doesn't take over the game? Because if he does, if he's running the show for Newcastle West, Clonmel have certainly done something wrong. They need to keep him out of the game.
It does seem that there definitely is more of a, how would you say, a forward approach from Clonmel this year. They're scoring a lot of goals. I know they got the 6 in the county final against Brackens, but they got 3 against Drum and 3 against Kilsheal, and like they're well able to get goals. I would have thought putting Seamus Kennedy back to fullback has definitely made them more sturdier than I would have thought. He'll be going. He'll definitely get the man marking duty on the guy you mentioned there from Newcastle West. So. But like Nina, Clonmel have a very powerful team. Like James Morris, huge guy. Sean O'Connor has had a good good club campaign. Like they won the county final without Jack Kennedy. Like, so if they get him back, and Conal Kennedy's probably still only finding his way back to his best form. And look, I just think they have a couple of young guys that have come in there this year, made a big impact. Keane Smith and young O'Dowd. So I think then they're a club that are going well. They're in the Junior B county final with their third team on Saturday as well. So
they haven't been tested though, Shane. Like if you go back to the first game of the county championship, right, it was very close against Kilsheal and Kilcash, 3-7 to 3-6. But we don't know how seriously either team was taking it that day. But then you go through the rest of the games. They kept Aero Gannacarty to 2 points. They kept Drummond Inch to 4 points. Ballina to 7, Mile Rovers. That was close enough, 14-11. And obviously 6-7 to 2-6 in the county final.
Yeah.
What's it going to be like for Clonmel now going?
It will be a lot different, I suppose. You're meeting winning teams from other counties. I'd like to think Clonmel would stay going with the style of play they've gone this year, like transition quick and take your scores. I just don't think Clonmel need to get dragged into the defensive battle, which was what last year's semi-final with Newcastle. Well, I think it was 10 points apiece, and then Newcastle won an extra time. I think it was something like that. So I think Clonmel have got to put their best foot forward and play the game on their terms, even if maybe Newcastle West try and play a bit defensively and take a few risks. And I suppose start fast, considering that Newcastle West might come in a little hungover in the first comments, like get ahead in these games at this time of the year, get ahead in the scoreboard, because like it's hard to come from behind at this time of the year.
Yeah, Paul Kelly has been announced as Tipperary football manager. A bit of a nice backroom team with him as well. He was previously involved with the Thomas Davis team that got to the county final. I wonder, like, is the biggest challenge for him having coming from a county that's basically all about football, and hurling is on the hind tit in Dublin. There's no doubt about it. Like, he's going to have to get used to the reality of this is a hurling county, and that might be one of the most frustrating things that he's going to come up against.
Probably so, but I suppose with the
split, players whipped from him, basically.
Yeah, but essentially, when you have the split season now, I suppose you have what you have, really. I think his big problem will be getting the guys in the first place. The guy like I suppose he probably liaised more with Paul Fitzgerald and Michael O'Sullivan in terms of they'll probably be the key men in terms of putting the squad together, because they probably would have seen an awful lot of the games within the county. And I do think we've got to strip this thing back a small bit and go with youth and go with guys that have gone well in club championship, like the likes of Jack Kennedy for JK Brackens. Like I thought he's one of our outstanding forwards in club football this year. Like the likes of him needs to be in there. The man is McFadden's, the Mikey Lyons, the Grange Moakler, Ballyneal. Like if they're able to commit, like I said, it's all about putting your guy, like getting guys and starting from there. Because like we've lost an awful lot of talent. Maybe trying to coax maybe some of the guys that have maybe departed back, maybe the likes of Everton Comerford. I'm not too sure Michael Quinlivan is a realistic one. I believe he's moving to, going to be living in the dock for the next while, so I don't think that's a realistic travel thing down and in terms of playing county football and getting him back. But like I suppose just try and keep a lot of maybe the key guys, the Mark Russell, Stephen O'Brien's, the Shane O'Connells, and the Jack Kennedys, the Colin Kennedys, get a lot of the season's key guys together and maybe put in the Ben Comforts and Leon Kennedys, like some of the exciting underage talent that started to rear its head again over the last couple of years, like the Charlie Kings in Ballina as well.
Just a slight change topic then. You have a piece coming out in the paper as well about, in terms of free speech a little bit, and what Alan Flynn said, and then the fact that Noel Dundon had a piece that the Tipperary GA website ended up taking down and all that kind of stuff. It's obviously frustrated you enough to do a column on it.
I just thought it was interesting that I suppose it's rare enough that you get a player these days as being as raw and emotionally raw as Alan Flynn was after that county final and saying the things he did, and brilliant for us, like, because we don't get an awful lot of it, and it created an awful lot of debate, and he didn't get an awful lot of support within Tipperary for what he said. I think he won't need to buy a drink in Killadangan maybe in terms of what he said, like, because they support him to the hilt. But I just thought, and then I just think there's an awful lot of people shooting people down for having an opinion at the moment. And then, like, you had Noel Dundon's article last week. I'm sure you saw it, Shane, and like, it was strong. I never actually
got to click into it. I saw the headline and a little bit of context.
It was strong in terms of what he said, but his column was entitled "The View," and I know people were saying maybe he was hard on Alan Flynn, and maybe he was hard on maybe some of the officials, maybe some of the decisions he gave against Thurles Arsenal. But like, it's an opinion. That's what it was. Like, it's not, you don't cancel somebody just because you agree. If you disagree with what they say, fine. But geez, don't go and say, lads, take that down. That's Jesus, lads. What's going on? Are we down that precious? Like most of my match reports and analysis pieces are opinion, and like, I'm not saying I'm right. It's my view. It's your, like, I'm sure there's a lot of people. I know you love the criticism you would get being pro tip on our game, but sure, that's a bit of crack too. Like, you have to live by the sword and die by the sword. Don't go and live by the sword and want the other lad's neck cut off if you don't agree with him. Like, so
like, it's something that's progressively been horrible, and this is why, like, I think it's been absolutely toxic on the line the last few years. And I know you're not a big Musk fan, but I'm much happier with him being over X these days than what was previously there. But because, like, I don't think you'd had the amount of people being shut down the last few years, because it's people that are from that little Silicon Valley 10 by 10 mile area that are causing an awful lot of this. But look, anyway, that's a different opinion. But I agree. I
thought the county board were wrong to take the article down. I think you might have disagreed with some of what he wrote, but he didn't defame or libel anyone.
Yeah. I mean, like, why have opinion pieces on on your website in the first place if you're not going to stand them up? Final thing, is there anything else that you want to add in terms of, like, some of the age grades set to be debated at a structures meeting?
No. Well, I suppose the interesting thing for me with next Monday's structures meeting, it generally, we seem to be pretty happy with what's there at the moment. There's a few tweaks, and I find it interesting that a couple of things we would have trashed out with during the course of the senior championship have been put forward by a club, actually, Upper Church-Strabane. One is that if you finish bottom of your group and you win a provincial divisional championship, you can't go into the preliminary quarter final. You know, the Clonalty
That's a great one.
That's interesting to see if clubs will back that now. Like it's you think on the face of it, sensible decision, but maybe some of the senior clubs like, Jesus, maybe we need that bit of help every year. So, but like I would think, in terms of streamlining your competitions, and then if you win your divisional championship and finish second in your group, you can't get drawn in a preliminary quarter final. You know what happened to Thurles Sarsfields this year, where they won the mid and finished second in their group, but they still had to play an ENA and a quarter. Like you should, I think that's a no-brainer too. Like you shouldn't have to play an extra game just because you finish second in the group and your division. So it's some little bit of reward. Like I think that'd be one too. I don't see any mention what were we speaking about a couple of weeks ago? There was another thing that probably. Oh yeah, in terms of if Thurles Sarsfields had won the Premier Intermediate, could they have gone senior? I don't see any motion put forward on that, but maybe that could be. I think that could be tied into the regulations when they're confirmed in the new year that if Thurles or second team won the Premier Intermediate next year, that there's the relegation is void or something, that in terms of if they don't want to go up, that some of the team that come up is going to come down. I see John Collins, we back in even age, the one. Yeah, I'd be surprised if there's support on next Monday to move back to uneven grades, because I think under 14 is way too late to start championship hurling and football. I honestly, I actually think under 13 is working very, very well the last 2 years, and our Greek players are a little bit the year more developed. The hurling is slightly better than under 12 as the players a year older. So 13, 15, 17, I think is fine. I think there is one of the clubs are putting forward a motion that instead of having 19 and 21, you just have an under 20 championship, which is I think there's merit in it. I think I'm not sure it'll pass, but I think maybe in time it's something that they might consider.
Yeah, and another question I wanted to go back to, it does seem like a bit of a no-brainer in the sense that if you don't finish in the top 3 in your group, it doesn't kick in, getting a preliminary quarter final on the basis of being divisional champions, because it just keeps the integrity of the competition going, because some team will be like, okay, we won the division, we can sort of put out half a team because maybe we want to mind our players for the knockout stages or whatever. I just think it keeps everything totally honest. And people will say, well, then what was your reward for winning the division? You got a cup.
Yeah.
That's it. And that, I think it should be the same at inter-county level. Oh, just what was the reward for winning Munster? Yeah, you got the cup. Now, new competition. What's the point in stacking the competition against everyone else because a team won, the previous competition? We shouldn't be doing that. Every competition should be a fresh competition.
Yeah, and the likelihood is you'd like to think it was probably a freak this year in terms of the group we got in that group of death with SARS and Killadangan and Clonalty and Borrisley, that if you put Clonalty, who finished fourth, in probably in another group, they wouldn't have finished fourth. And then there were West champions as well. Look, that's not to say it mightn't happen next year if Mullinahone won a South or Clonalty won a West. They still might finish bottom. You could be in the same scenario again, or maybe one of the North or Mid teams, but the North and Mid is so open. There's likelihood that you probably won't find yourself in that situation.
Anything else you want to touch on before we finish up?
No, not at the moment. Yeah, so it is looking strange now, looking ahead to next weekend and having no match to plan for. So it was very weird on Sunday night. I found it that not only was it losing for the first time in over 2 years, there was no match to plan for, and the season was over. It's weird when the season ends. And that's probably the one downside of these provincial competitions out after a county final. You don't end on a high bar the team that goes on to win the whole bloody thing. And it takes a small bit of an edge off it. But look, overall the year was brilliant for Lorrha, and looking forward to pitting our wits in that senior level next year.
I'm just trying to think off the top of my head, when are inter-county teams due to actually return to training? I'd say the vast majority of them are back training.
24th of November is when they can be competitive. When it's well, I'm sure they're all in gym programs and stuff, but I think the first time they can be in Dr. Morris Park officially is 24th of November. It's actually something.
Yeah, I'm not talking about Dublin or Tipperary or anything like that, but
it's actually something Niall O'Meara mentioned, and we keep hearing it all the time from the guys that are retiring, like the commitment levels and what's been asked. And I'd love to see maybe the next GA president. I'd love to see them, if they had the bullishness to do it, like get the best S&C minds together and say, what's the minimum amount of S&C or something that's needed? Like, do we need all this training of 4 or 5 nights a week, like for inter-county? Maybe make it a bit more work-life, play-life balance in terms of like it's. Like in fairness, we're getting great games and stuff. But like you're making it very, very hard. You're making it harder for guys to commit with what's being asked of them, I think, nowadays.
And if you have a very good club team, I think a lot of players would step away and be like, you know what, I'm getting my fix here playing for the likes of, Ballygunner, whoever. Like they have a lot of players who'd walk on to the Waterford team, but I'd say they're getting their fill and that bit more playing for their club because they're at such a high level.
Yeah, like anyway, I do think the point is going to come where like you're going to have to say like 24th, like you do need a pre-season for inter-county, like what leagues will be starting late January. You do need probably a good 4 or 6 week pre-season where you're training as a group, like, but but then do you need to be together 4 or 5 nights a week during the summer? I don't think so. Like it is like. But I do think it's an Irish thing where you put a rule in place, but when then the rule is brought in, you're looking to a way to get around the rule or bend the rule or break the rule. There
wasn't Ange Postecoglou saying that about soccer there the other day.
You just need a breath of fresh air.
Yeah. Speaking of which, did you like that whole thing down to 9 men and they're still pressing up almost to the halfway line?
Novel, but brainless stuff. Like you cut your cloth to suit your measure at 9 men. You put 9 men behind the ball and hope you get a 1-1 draw and move on from that. As far as I'm concerned, like so, I just thought it's kamikaze stuff, like so.
Especially with Chelsea being so clueless at the moment. Sit back, they're not going to create anything, and it's just they basically said, "Here, keep knocking balls over the top there and run in 1-on-1."
You'll figure it out. You'll eventually not break the offside trap, and you'll pass it in. Your man Jackson won't score 3 early goals, like so.
Yeah, and like Nicholas Jackson had looked hopeless up until he got a couple of goal chances that he absolutely could not miss. And you know what? I love the way Postecoglou says, look, if we're down to 5, we're going to have a crack or whatever. Yeah. Which, of course, you can't because the game's abandoned once you get down to 7 men. But like, let's say last day of the season, they need a point to win the title. Is he going to push high? No, he's going to sit back. So, he's playing to the gallery a little bit there. I think that's it for the show, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. She'll be back next week. Hopefully Niall O'Meara will be on. We'll have a good chat with him. And still working on my team in the championship, so it's getting there. A couple of positions I'm finding it very hard to choose from. So
yeah, you're going to cause a bit of mayhem with that. Okay, Shane, chat to you then.
Yep.